The skies above Colorado seem endless, stretching blue and wide across the horizon, dotted by the snow-capped Rockies and the rolling desert beyond. But on the morning of April 21st, 1958, those skies became the stage of one of the most horrifying aviation tragedies in American history. A mid-air collision so sudden, so violent, it destroyed not only 2 aircraft, but also 49 lives. This is the story of United Airlines Flight 736, the Air Force jet that crossed its path, and the legacy of pain and change that followed. The morning began in Los Angeles, where the sun had just risen over the bustling terminals of LAX. The airport hummed with activity, footsteps echoing on tile floors, flight announcements cutting through the air, baggage carts rumbling past gates. On the tarmac, the silver fuselage of a Douglas DC-7 reflected the California light. Its name was United Airlines Flight 736, bound for Denver. It was to be a routine trip, just under 2 hours of flying time, carrying passengers from the busy West Coast to the mile-high city. The boarding was filled with the usual mix of energy and routine. Businessmen with polished shoes carried briefcases stuffed with papers for meetings that would never happen. A young mother held the hand of her 5-year-old son, guiding him up the steps with a smile meant to hide her own nervousness. 2 students laughed as they found their seats, eager to get back to their classes in Colorado. A traveling salesman greeted the flight attendant with a joke as he stuffed his suitcase into the overhead compartment. Ordinary people, ordinary lives, each with hopes and plans that would be cut short in just a few hours. In the cockpit sat Captain George C. Lovell, Jr., a seasoned pilot with thousands of hours in the skies. His voice was calm and steady, carrying the confidence of experience. Beside him, First Officer Robert Rigdon read through the pre-flight checklists with precision, adjusting switches and confirming systems. The cabin crew moved with practiced ease, offering smiles, checking belts, making sure everyone was comfortable. For them, it was another day of duty, another flight across the skies they trusted. The tower cleared the airliner for departure. United 736 cleared for takeoff, runway 25 right. The response was crisp. United 736 rolling. The 4 engines of the DC-7 roared, the aircraft trembled, then surged down the runway before lifting gracefully into the clear skies above Los Angeles. Passengers leaned back, some watching the shrinking city below, others turning to magazines or newspapers. The little boy giggled as his mother pointed to the clouds. It was a peaceful beginning, a calm ride into the morning air. But far away in Nevada at Nellis Air Force Base, another aircraft prepared for a very different kind of mission. Lieutenant Wayne O. Modisett, a young Air Force pilot, climbed into the cockpit of a North American F-100 Super Sabre. Sleek, powerful, and capable of supersonic speeds, the F-100 was built for combat, not for sharing airspace with lumbering passenger planes. That morning, Modisett's orders were to carry out high-altitude training maneuvers, simulated combat drills that would test his reflexes and precision. He strapped in, canopy closing overhead, hands moving across switches with practiced confidence. The engines ignited, the jet thundered forward, and soon the F-100 was streaking skyward, cutting across the desert air at speeds the DC-7 could never match. At 21,000 feet, United 736 leveled off. The cockpit was calm. Altitude steady at 21,000, Captain, Rigdon reported. Airspeed holding. Good, Lovell replied. Let's keep her on course. In the cabin, the attendants began preparing trays of breakfast. The businessman unfolded his newspaper. The students whispered and laughed. The mother leaned close to her son, reading him a story as he pressed his toy airplane against the window. Everything seemed safe. But in 1958, Lieutenant Modisett's jet was climbing, banking, turning through its training exercise. His focus was on the mission, his speed carrying him across the invisible highways of the sky. The DC-7 was steady on its route, cruising toward Denver. Neither pilot could see the other in time. Neither knew that in just moments, the vast Colorado sky would collapse into chaos. At 10:30 a.m., the collision happened. The nose of the F-100 tore into the left wing of the DC-7 with an explosion that lit up the sky. Metal shredded, flames erupted, the air itself seemed to crack open. In the cockpit of United 736, alarms shrieked. The aircraft lurched violently. "Impact! Left wing's gone! We're losing control!" Rigdon shouted. Passengers screamed as the cabin tilted, luggage crashing from overhead, smoke pouring through ruptured seams. The F-100 spun out of control, its fuselage breaking apart as Modicet fought desperately against physics. From the ground, witnesses stood frozen, eyes wide. One rancher would later say, "It was like watching two stars collide in daylight. A flash, then fire falling from the sky." The DC-7 spiraled downward, pieces of metal breaking away as it tumbled. Flames consumed the wing, black smoke trailing against the clear blue. Inside, fear filled every second. The mother clutched her boy, the businessman held onto his seat, the students grabbed each other's hands. Seconds stretched like eternity, then the desert floor rushed upward. The impact was catastrophic. The DC-7 exploded in a fireball that shook the earth, sending debris scattering across the Colorado desert. The F-100 struck nearby, its own wreckage joining the inferno. For miles, the smoke was visible, a black column rising into the sky like a wound in the morning. Rescue teams raced toward the site, sirens wailing. Firefighters and police struggled against the flames, but what they found was devastation beyond words. Twisted metal, scorched earth, fragments of lives scattered everywhere. There were no survivors. 42 passengers and crew aboard the DC-7, gone. The young Air Force pilot, gone. 49 lives erased in an instant. News spread quickly. Radios carried the grim announcement. At Denver's airport, families waiting for Flight 736 collapsed into grief as officials delivered the news. Across the nation, headlines screamed, "Airliner collides with jet fighter, 49 dead." Shock rippled through the public. How could a commercial airliner carrying mothers, children, students collide with a military jet in clear daylight? The Civil Aeronautics Board launched an immediate investigation. Investigators combed the wreckage, piecing together flight paths, analyzing impact angles, interviewing witnesses. The conclusion was chilling. Neither pilot had erred. Both aircraft were operating legally within their rights. The disaster was not born of individual mistake, but of systemic failure. Civilian and military flights had been allowed to share airspace without coordination, without the radar coverage necessary to track them all. It was a disaster waiting to happen. The testimonies were heartbreaking. A farmer described the collision as two suns exploding. Families shared the stories of their loved ones, now gone forever. Airline officials demanded changes. Military leaders faced hard questions about their training flights. Congress called hearings, the voices of grieving families echoing through the halls of power. The tragedy forced America to act. The newly formed Federal Aviation Agency, later renamed the Federal Aviation Administration, was given sweeping authority. Airspace was reorganized. Military and civilian routes were separated more strictly. Altitude separation rules were enforced. A nationwide radar network expanded, ensuring no aircraft FT could slip unseen across busy skies. These reforms came too late for the passengers of Flight 736. Their lives ended in fire, their families left with grief that would never fade. A father waited,